Hey y'all. It is Monday, December 4th. Christmas is coming, so if you want to send anybody something, you got to do it right away. Um, but nobody's doing that here because instead we're hanging out, nerding out with each other to talk about Timex Sinclair computers and other such nonsense. Um, the one thing I thought we might want to talk about was what um, what kind of feature set, what kind of wonderfulness we might want in a future um, 2068, slightly improved 2068, one that probably doesn't have the beautiful case that Gary Grimes designed, um, but one that might be a little faster, a little more reliable, that you could plug maybe a USB keyboard into, that would be easier to get on the net, those sorts of things. Um, and then there's other stuff. Adam, you wanted to talk about modeming and
Correct. Yeah.
BBSing.
Or if anyone's
Uh,
done that, like using any of the modern tools to go log into, it doesn't have to be specifically Spectrum, but obviously
yeah,
it would make sense because I don't think there's going to be any 2068 boards out there or 1000 BBSs. But hey, I'd love to
yeah.
be proven wrong.
And we were just talking, Mike and I were just talking before the meeting started, and he was regaling us with his, tales of excitement and woe. And he, back in the 80s, um, picked up a TS-1000 and had this book. There was a guy who wrote a book about building a robot using a 1000, and Mike had the book and tried it. So maybe we could talk about that too. And anything else that's on your mind tonight? um, does anybody have any preferences? Any
Well, I do want to say that it seems like the last few meetings we've talked about like the quote, the 2068 next.
Yeah.
Not sure what new ground we have to cover there. Is what are we going to cover?
Well, that's a really good question. Carl and Ryan at the end of the last meeting started to chat about some ideas, and so that's why I was bringing it forward to this one. Um, so maybe we'll get Carl to finish his thought from the last meeting.
Okay, well, I don't, it's not really specifically talking about a 2068 next. My kind of passion or whatever is around the 2060 expansion unit,
Mhm.
right? Which kind of gives the 2068 some extra life because obviously, in my mind, the intention of something like that would be to add functionality to the 2068 that it you know, is pretty commonly added on these days, i.e., a Spectrum ROM, right, or some type of video output. Um, but now that the TS Pico is out, that would be a great place to house that, right, instead of just sticking out in the back. I mean, to some people that's fine, and there's nothing wrong with that. But going back to when I was a kid, in my teens, looking at that E. Arthur Brown catalog where he had the big picture of everything that, Timex had planned for the future, and that 2060 expansion unit is pretty unassuming, in that picture because it's just kind of a little wedge that the 2068 plugged into, right? There was no big fanfare about it. As opposed to the 2050 modem that was on top of it, right? The 2020 cassette recorder, the 2065 micro drives, which I'm still working on trying to make that a reality. I mean, as fake as it's going to be, so to speak, but it'll look the part, right? And anyway, so I know Brian has made some pretty good documentation. He's that seems to be his forte. It used to be mine, but I kind of I don't know. I fell away from that. I do it from time to time, but he definitely came up with some great drawings of what this thing might house, how the ports on the back would look, what kind of ports we would be thinking of bringing into this thing. Obviously, it would, probably house a power supply because we're adding a lot of things to the machine. So it's going to need some, you know, more modern power supply with some more, capabilities there. And so, and in essence, it would replace, the brick that we plug the 2068 into now if you had a 2060, because there'd be a switching power supply inside of that to power everything, including the 2068. And, we've had discussions of, like another sound chip in there, because sometimes people want to do stereo sound because you just can't do that with the 2068 the way it's wired. Yeah, I don't know if Ryan has any of those drawings that he had that he might be able to put up on the screen.
Right. We were
Uh,
looking at them at the local pizza joint when we were together a few weeks ago.
yeah,
Yeah.
we were discussing, how that might look, and then, we were discussing obviously putting a Spectrum bus, as one of the expansion ports on the back of the 2060. Obviously, there's Spectrum hardware that can work with the 2068. And a lot of times, you need the twister board, right? If you're going to do Spectrum stuff. So
Yeah.
why not build that into that? That'll just be part of it. And then I know Ryan was talking about having maybe two 2068 buses on the back. So you would have a little bit more capability to plug 2068 peripherals in, although there's not that many of those, but we seem to be making more and more every day. But and like I said, my intention was kind of to have some place aesthetically pleasing to put all these little projects of ours, right? So that they would be inside of this thing, and there'd be like riser cards on either side of it, so that it's not very tall, the initial one, right? The one that the Timex was looking at. But then I had, we kind of talked about that, and well, maybe we can make a 2060 expansion unit that had a taller base, right? A taller top, so that you could put, maybe two cards in either side, or maybe even three. But and then as the baseboard that's inside of there, we were thinking, instead of just having one circuit board that covered the whole width of that we might split that up into two or possibly three separate boards, so that people could, if they wanted to get just the bare minimum, it would be a cost savings, because it wouldn't need to have the whole wide board there, because that thing's, a little wider than the 2068 itself. So that'd be a pretty sizable board. And then we would, so that would basically give you maybe a 2068 expansion on the back, and basically maybe a one card riser slot.
Hang on a second. I'm on a conference call right now. Let me put you on hold. Hang on. Sorry about that, guys.
All right. And so that's kind of my, my idea of what's going on for the 2060 expansion unit, not necessarily insofar as a 2068 next, which I think is a whole nother subject. But I do see, a lot of the tools and peripherals that we're making now, and even the ones that have been in the past, that we have from the past, could actually fit inside of this thing and just make everything a little bit more, compact, aesthetically pleasing, and, just, Jeff was mentioning someplace to put your monitor.
Your LCD.
Yeah, your LCD these days, or like in my case, I'd like to get as close as we can to that, the Timex Dream picture, where we had the, we already have the 2050 modem, that we have that, we have the 2020 cassette recorder. All we're really missing is the bus expansion unit itself and the micro drives. Although,
Do you have that printer? Because that was an Epson.
No.
no, I've looked and tried to see who made that. I've had a
It
couple of,
was allegedly one thing I heard was like a Manus Metalli.
Mhm.
right. And I've looked at
badge.
some of those, and I really haven't found one that matches up right to that. And I don't think Timex would have gone out and made a custom design. I'm sure they just took something that they had already
Painted it silver,
made.
and we're done.
Right, exactly. So I mean, I've kind of been looking around to see what would match up to it, and I might just end up doing something with like an Epson MX80 or an RX80 or something like that. That looks pretty close. It's not exactly what that printer is, but
What I would pick is, if you're going to do an actual printer, is probably pick something that's easily maintainable these days.
yeah, I would think an RX80 or an MX80 is probably going to be that, because I mean they made so many of those things, right? That was the de facto standard. So I mean, you could even find ink the ink
Ribbons.
cartridge things for those things still, and I don't know about the print heads and things like that, but I'm sure those are pretty common too, since they made, I don't want to say millions of those, but they probably did.
So, Carl, you've been talking about the 2060 that we saw in the picture. And I think you were in the meeting when we talked to Gary Grimes. It was a long time ago.
Mhm.
And he showed us, his drawings, right?
Right.
All the sort of spec drawings. And I just want to put this one up again because this one's kind of nifty looking. And it's a little taller, right? Than the one that we saw in the picture.
Right.
It's hard to make out, what those labels might be, but maybe those are 5.25-inch floppies, as imagined by somebody who has no idea what they are. Because they're not deep enough, but they're wide enough.
Right. Yeah.
Who knows what that mystery black space is across the the top of the first unit, and then whatever that slimline unit on top of, that must be a stereo or something up on top. But then if you look at the back,
Yeah, and this
clearly,
kind of looks okay. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, if you look at the back drawing, it does look like it's one main unit, and then two units on top, two thicker units on top, and then
Mhm.
two thinner units on top of that,
Right.
just because of that dividing line.
Exactly.
Well, I think what's interesting about that is, one, it's as deep as it looks to be about the area of the 2060.
Yeah,
but it's tall, but it's taller. It almost looks like what Carl's describing as, it has a taller top for the expansion cards, risers.
Yeah.
Right.
And also notice the jacks in the middle.
Yeah.
Because a lot of Carl talked about the drawings I was doing, and a lot of them are just sketches, because I'm just trying to thinking of ideas. And so, I put an expansion edge connector in the back. You have to have that. And I thought, well, you know what? You're probably going to wind up with another one of these cards that doesn't have a pass through, and you won't have another place to put it necessarily. So why don't we just put two of those in the back? And then we're going to have some slots. That'd be all great. Okay, fine. But then I ran into the problem of, like, you know what? Everywhere you put one of those, you're going to block essentially the space right above the slot. So if you look on the back on the left bottom, there appears to be four of these, but who knows what those are. But one of them is going to be a pass-through connector. But if I plug that card into there, it's going to cover that one above it probably a little bit.
What if Ryan, those two slots above are horizontal slots?
That's what I mean, though. They have to be high enough above the bottom one so that, like, a Pico plugged in doesn't cover it.
Mm-hmm.
That was the problem I was running into and trying to come up with how I might do it.
Well, Ryan, to get to what David was saying, we could basically take our extender board and rotate it 90 degrees so that the cards then plug in horizontally and stack, because they take a lot less room that way than they do when they're standing up.
Yeah. And you could
No.
3D print like a card cage.
Yeah.
I think this is a space for the disk drive. If you see, you have two of that because maybe it's drive A, drive B, and the next is the power supply. It's like FDD3 created in Portugal, maybe.
Very possible, yeah. Yeah.
And also,
Yeah, I think this probably was
I
the
think on the
intention.
base unit, you have a slot to the very right, just above where the card slot is. You see that slot right there?
Yeah.
Looks like it fit a 3.5 inch. So maybe the middle unit itself, I don't know if those were necessarily going to be floppy drives. I think the top piece was going to be your RAM expansion, so you just add chips in there.
Mm.
But I think your power supply and your floppy drive would be on the bottom unit, just similar to the bus expansion unit that the Texas Instrument designed theirs that way. Do y'all follow me on that?
Yeah, you know what, and Andy, you make a good point, because of the way that the documentation for checking how much memory is in expansion slots, or on the expansion bus rather, it could be a variable number of units. So
Yeah, and back then they were linear power supplies, so they're heavy, but they needed to be on the bottom.
right.
yes,
Yeah.
the FDD3 system has a linear power supply also.
Everybody had a linear, well, except for IBM. And
No, but the Timex US version has the pulse power supply inside. It's not linear.
what are you talking
inside.
about? With US version of
Is,
what?
you have a circuit, a 78S40.
Oh, well,
it's
but
switching.
the transformer is linear.
Oh, no, yes,
the thing that
correct.
plugs
Yes,
into the wall for us is linear.
yes.
Yeah, it gets turned
to-
into
exactly.
it's a switcher inside the 2068. Yeah.
Maybe to fulfill with the insulation and also the regulation for NAC, because need a 1500 volts.
Well,
The beautiful drawing he had there, David.
yeah.
I had never seen that before.
Oh, well, it's on the website. If you go to the Timex Computer Corporation page, I'll put this in the chat in a second. We talked to Gary Grimes. Geez, I feel like it was a couple years ago at this point. And he's the person that did the industrial design for the 2068. And he showed us, all these really cool drawings and some photos. They're on the page of his, his industrial design thought process. It was just fantastic.
And I know somebody
Dave.
at some point put a picture up of the back of the 2060 expansion unit. And I think Ryan might have seen that somewhere. I don't know that I've seen that, but I thought he said that was part of Gary's documentation too. Because it had all the ports and it had like a notch cut out for cables to go through to plug into the back of the 2068. And I don't know where Ryan, do you know where you got that picture from or that diagram from?
That's from that description document.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's right. Yes, there is a thing on the back.
Yeah, there's a real good picture of the ports and how the back of the 2060 would look like. I mean, from that
So
2060 documentation.
My guess is Gary Grimes' illustration was earlier when they were still thinking floppy drives.
Yeah. Well, it's dated from June 10th. It says 6/10/83 on it. So that would line up, Ryan.
Yeah,
And
and
how
it was right
this-
about then that the micro drives finally shipped after being, kind of AWOL for a long 18 months.
Yeah.
From Clive announcing that he had something revolutionary or whatever. But Yeah, it looks like those drawings even there had some sort of thing that's plugging into a space in the bottom center. If you go
Well,
back
that's
to
where
that.
that power
Let me put
supply
that back
goes.
up. Yeah, I think
That's where
that's I think that's right. What Carl is saying is correct. I think that, and
Because it
I don't-
shows like arrow that
Yeah,
goes
it-
into there. That's where that you would kind of tuck into that area, I'm thinking.
I think you're
Uh,
correct.
I used to have a
Mhm.
trained eyeball, and what you think of disc enclosures looks mighty thin, slim, front to back, the depth.
Yeah, not deep enough.
Yeah.
Weird.
Even for
Yeah,
three and a half.
that's where like Gustavo's saying, that detached power supply to me kind of gives me the FDD 3000 kind of design language. I think they probably kind of took that when they made the FDD 3000.
Yeah.
Well,
Because it has
is any of that text legible if zoomed in
No.
or not?
No,
Okay.
and I'm I have.
Did you
You
scan
can
those
see
from the book, David?
Yeah, it's in the book. Do you have the book, Andy, Adam?
It's in my garage. I could go get it real quick.
Okay, yeah, because I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where my copy is.
I'll go get it.
All right, cool. Yeah, because what Adam's mentioning is Gary put together this book, mostly for his kids, of all of this stuff he had done over his entire career. And there's this like one little tiny slice of pages that is the Timex, because he only worked for Timex for a year, and before that is lots of Philips stereo stuff, and after is lots of Philips stereo stuff.
I think it's the FDD3 because the FDD3 has 3 separate blocks.
Yeah, that's what I
One is
mean. Yeah,
power
Certainly,
supply,
it
then
seems like they
controller,
borrowed.
and
Yeah,
then the
Right.
drive. It's 3
Right.
separate. It's
that's
not
what I
the
meant.
FDD
Yeah, the
3000.
3000 came later. You're right. That was more integrated, but
Yeah.
You're
Yeah, the
talking about
first-
the Zebra disk drives.
yes.
Now, what
Right.
about the fabled Timex Sinclair 3000 that would replace the 2068? That never happened in the United States.
We only have. Oh well, you know what? Let me take that
I mean,
back.
how would that incorporate with this diagram you just showed? If Timex was going to go all out to do this for the bus expansion unit for the 2068 or the 2072 or the
Yes.
2048, however they're going to name it, that ended up the 2068, would that also have been something that the Timex Sinclair 3000 console would be able to link up to?
Well, Johnny,
it would be all speculation at this point because we don't really know.
there was some stuff done in Portugal, and the 3000 is, correct me if I'm wrong on, Johnny, you know this better than I do, is basically a terminal that attaches to the FDD 3000.
Yeah, they had a 2048 Spectrum
Well,
rear end into a controller that cabled into the FDD 3000, which was
Yeah.
basically a power supply with, it had 64K of RAM on board, so it could run CPM. And
yeah,
had
it was basically a
Yes,
CPM box with a 2068 as its terminal.
Yes.
But I am user of the FDD3 system and also with the 64K expansion. Put the memory for 64K, do nothing, another change inside the controller, and is perfect compatible with the FDD 3000. It's the same exactly architecture and the same board put in the single box. That's why it's the metal box. It's not the plastic box. The plastic box is the FDD3, and another box is created apparently in Portugal with the metal case, and put all power, controller, and also the drives. It's the same parts that the FDD3 use, except the case.
And I remember seeing somewhere there's a 3268, right? That Portugal guys were kind of playing around with, and so it kind of looks like a 2068, but it's like thicker because if I recall, there was 2 boards in there. They were sandwiched, so it had to be taller. But it was just a prototype. I don't think they really got too far along with that anyway.
Yeah.
That was, I think, the intended successor versus an FD, the 3000
Right.
system.
That was that was going to be the 3268, which is going to be the next you know, 2068 or whatever.
So
So
David,
just saying hi here. This is David Ellis, by the way, just dropping in.
greetings, David. David Anderson, I have a question for you. So I pulled my book out
Yeah,
from Gary.
yeah.
And do you have a different book if you scan them
No, I
from
have
the
the
book?
same book.
Okay, because there's only one picture
Oh,
of the
really?
2068 in this entire book, and it's opposite of a pregnancy test he designed, or not designed, but made. But
Good.
so I don't know if you can see this very well, but that's the only picture of the 2068 in the whole book. So where'd you get those pictures from? His website or something?
I got them from him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? I'll circle back to him and see if he has higher resolution versions.
It's a
The
cool
first
book.
the first time I see documented the 2068 number was in the technical manual, because in this specific manual, you have the 2068 right in paper. The rest of the documentation for Timex use 2000 as a generic.
Well, in May of 83-ish, Timex put out a little sales thing that lists prices of various products, and it also came with artwork that like a magazine or a newspaper would use for the 2048 and the 2068. I can put that up. So the 2068 name is was pretty well established at a certain point in 83.
And the real 2048, or the original 2048, is the machine that was released in Portugal later 2 years, or
No, the
is
original 2048 in the US was going to be a 16K
Yeah.
machine.
The TS 2048
Yeah.
was a 16K version, and it got dropped late in the game.
Yep.
Yeah,
Is
it was still
yeah.
the same case as the 2068. It had a cartridge port. It just they took the 32K of RAM out of it. That's it.
Yeah.
only 2 banks, the memory banks, only
Probably.
installed on the
One
main
bank.
board.
Well, the
Yeah.
one bank, just the 16K, that was it. The other 4 chips were gone. They wouldn't, just like a 16K Spectrum.
Yeah. So let me yeah, here we go. This is pretty craziness. Let me share my screen and then I'm gonna share my screen. Here we go. Okay, so this was some product art, like they would give to magazines or newspapers so that they could, put a picture of the thing in the computer. And they also gave you, very handy, headlines in multiple sizes. This is my favorite though. It's the Timex Sinclair 2048 product art. And it's like in the biggest, even in the smaller one, the labeling is just way outsize in terms of
That's not even in perspective.
yeah, it's not.
No, and also you have the Timex Sinclair 2048 logo.
Yes.
It's printed in the document.
I'm
Well,
sorry.
see, the other thing too here, guys, is see how the 2048 or the 2068, the numbers are roundish,
Mhm.
right? The 8 has kind of got the roundish, the 6, the
Oh my
2.
gosh, you're right, Carl.
And in the real world, all those are kind of square.
Yeah,
the 2 is
yeah.
just a square line, square, and the 8 is just
Yeah.
that's how the real world labels look. But this is obviously a press thing. It
Yeah.
doesn't really matter too much, but
You know,
Do we know what font that is right there?
which
David?
one?
Scroll
This?
down a bit. Yeah, the headlines. Any idea what font?
Could be Helvetica, but a slight italicized version.
Okay, just well, if anybody knew, so
Um,
just curious.
the thing that's going to tell you the most is the R, because those are the ones that are really different across, and the S. Those are the ones that are going to be really, really different.
I have a general question about
got a nice curve to it.
I'll do
this.
some comparisons then. If no one knows, I'll do some comparisons. Thanks.
Yeah.
So if this was like 1983,
Yep.
and there was like a a store selling the 2068, would they make their ad from this, or like, because in the newspapers you'd have like black and white ads, obviously,
Yep.
and they were usually just line art. So is that where they would get something like this? But this, or were the stores not? I mean, how did they get those pictures? I mean,
Well,
none of us know.
let me back up and show you what this came with. How do I get my thing back?
So Adam, basically newspapers will do the art for the advertiser. I used to
Yep.
work in a newspaper, and
Oh.
they use a lot of photocopying, and they would use a wax process to sort of glue the paper down to the actual large sheet. So they would basically, and then you could buy these pre-canned artwork like Dover type stuff, and then use it and cut it out, and then cut the middle section out for your own text. And you have like a teletype machine to do your own text on film, on paper, cut that to shape and lay it in. So it was very much a manual process for cut and paste.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
On
that's
May
the-
1, the Timex 2068 is in development. It's not finished yet.
It doesn't stop anybody from advertising product that doesn't exist. Adam, the price, those pictures, they came with this price list, and this
okay.
was, so there's that same 1500 art, right? Because it didn't exist yet. And then all of these tapes for the 1000, these are all 03, so these are all 1000 series tapes. All software is packed 12 cases to a carton.
12 cassettes. 12 cassettes
I'm
to a
sorry,
carton.
12 cases, cassettes per right. And then there was this really cool thing. Unfortunately, there's no picture on here, but for $300 you could get this merchandising display. And some folks apparently reported seeing this at Kmart's in particular.
Yeah. For the Bally, in the 1970s and the early 1980s, there was a kiosk you could buy for like $300.
Wow.
Yep.
TV set
Yeah,
not included.
there's pictures of that online too, David. I'm sure you've seen them.
Of the Bally or the Timex?
No, the Timex one.
No,
and
I
then
don't think I've run across one yet.
Really?
Yeah.
And then there's some people, some people actually have that kit, the hardware of it anyway.
I'll be damned. I should go check the Kmart near me that closed.
It's going to be in the back with your name on it.
Go check in the back room. Yeah. Hey, I want to say hi to David, because David, this is probably the first time you've joined us.
Yeah, so far, am I coming through?
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. Is that your
I got
Timex over in the corner?
It's a Timex in the back with chess on the screen.
Nice. Nice.
The fixed chess.
Right. Yeah. Well,
Is that the chest that was being talked about in the group yesterday and today? That
Yeah,
didn't run on
the one
Pico?
that came on the ESD had some glitch in it, and someone else fixed that. So
cool.
And uploaded it, and I got hold of that.
Yeah. You know who's responsible for putting the wrong version on there? That'd be me.
Operator error.
All of the programs on there probably just need to be carefully checked. There's a few of them that actually you have to do run to get them to run after you've loaded them, and a few other quirks.
Yeah, they're not auto run programs, some of them.
As for stuff you were asking about, what kind of additional stuff to go, I posted in one of the subgroups I created for third-party products. I just mentioned like a real-time clock card, a serial parallel interface, and conceivably a really pokey USB interface. Things to think about for those slots.
Well, and it's funny you should mention a real-time clock, because Tim was involved in rescuing this big pile of stuff, from a guy in California. And one of the mystery circuit boards that he couldn't identify was a real-time clock for the 1000, because the 1000 needs a real-time clock.
And it's kind of funny you guys mentioned that too, because even in the Spectrum Next, right, the RTC is an option, right, that you can put on the board. It doesn't come with it, but you can put it on yourself.
Oh, I don't
You
remember
would think
that.
a company like Timex would have thought of a clock from the get-go, that being what else they did. I could just imagine that they'd also figured out about Y2K, and then they put the Timex out here in an IBM computer, run a spreadsheet on both, and both project to 2000, and the IBM ends up with the wrong number.
Yes, that would have been the killer application that would have put 1,000s in offices everywhere.
And I kind of want to interject too, as far as the 2068 name, I mean, I've mentioned it before, and I think we even asked Danny
Danny,
about this,
yeah.
that he was the one that he misspoke of the number, right? Because it was going to be the 2072, just because of the 72K of RAM, right? Everybody was in the RAM race back then, so
Yeah.
the more RAM you had, the better your machine was. Anyway, he misspoke and said 2068. And so I kind of want to mention that and say, well, I think if you go back and look at the video that they had for the Consumer Electronics Show where they showed that stuff, I think he mentioned, he says 2068, a bunch of times in reference to that, to the 2068
Yeah.
that we have today. And that was, Winter Consumer Electronics Show is, generally in January. So if they had that stuff back then in January, that's pretty impressive. I mean, as far as the molds for the case, and because they were definitely showing stuff off.
January of 83?
Yeah.
No, they didn't.
When was
in
that
83
video?
they were showing the with the funky Spectrum case with the little colored square dots, remember?
Yeah, but
basically in January of 83 they were showing the souped up Spectrum as the new 2000.
Yeah.
well, because when they were demonstrating it, it was a 26. Well, it was in that new case. It was in the case that the 2068's in, because you
Are you
couldn't
thinking
close
of
the
the-
cartridge door.
Carl, are you thinking of the Boston video?
Oh,
where-
maybe that's it.
where
Right,
he's-
not the Consumer Electronics
That
Show.
was
it the Boston
October.
Yeah, that was in October. Yeah,
of
83.
83. It
okay.
was the
He
1 year
definitely-
anniversary or 2 year anniversary of the Timex Sinclair Boston Society group, whatever.
That's
Yeah,
the one I'm
something like
thinking
that.
about. Okay,
Yeah.
so I mean, so that kind of, yeah. Well, then that's too late to kind of squelch
I
these.
did. I did work out that whenever the 16K 2048 was dropped, it happened after the 72 was renamed to the 68, because we see 2048 mentioned along with the 2068 in places.
Mhm. Mhm. Hey,
I can since I mentioned a timeline a while back, I actually started to sit down and work on one, but expand on it to about a 15-page document on the whole history. Not quite done with it. David's already been doing some review of it, but I can go back and look at it and actually see if I can come up with some actual dates of roughly when they dropped the 2048. But I think it was late summer, early fall, something like that when they dumped it.
yeah.
And plus, a lot of things you were seeing in newsletters are always late. If you see something in the January issue, they probably typed it up mid-December, so the news could be from like early December.
Well,
In
the other thing
America,
I
we didn't
noticed
get a lot
with
of the machines that had different RAM sizes, except like by Atari, right? Like there was no Commodore 64 with like 16K of RAM, for instance, or anything.
Didn't
that's
the
partly why they
C16
dropped the model.
There was the C16, which is basically a +4, I think, with less memory.
Right. That is true. That is true. Didn't do
Yeah.
very well, that's for sure. But yeah.
Yeah.
I
well,
remember being somewhere where it was like, "Hey, come down to our timeshare. We'll give you a free computer." As a C16.
Well, and Adam, you're correct. In the PET and the CBM series,
Mhm.
there was, I don't remember how much the first PET came with, but there was, there was like a 2016, a 4016, a 4032. I can't recall if there was I know there was an 8032 because I had one at one point. But I can't recall if there was a 60. There was a educators module that was basically a
Oh, the Educator
64
64.
in a.
It depends. It depends on what year we're talking about. Because it was very sensitive on the time. In just 1 year, the price can change enough.
Oh yeah.
Early 80s, the late 70s, early 80s, everything was like 4K for a long time. Unless you spent a whale of a lot of money. Then, you started seeing it was more common to see a lot of systems. And at some point, yeah, everything kind of came with a full boat,
Yeah. Hey, David, I have a question for you or two.
Sure.
You submitted a program to Sinclair News, I think, for a contest a number of years back. And I think it got printed, but I don't recall off the top of my head. But that leads to my sort of general question of, how did you end up in this crazy world?
Oh, the last time I submitted something would have been in the 80s on my 1000 before I got the 2068. I haven't done anything program wise on it since then. I did have some little program in there that would do it was my early, actually I think it was my like dropping a missile on something passing underneath, and then also I had a bubble sort that is all machine code on the CPU. The only CPU I ever learned how to machine code program because it had so few instructions. I mean, and 2/3 of them are roll right, roll left, shift right, shift left stuff anyway.
All right, let me show you. This was 88-ish. Let me show you what I. Does this look familiar?
No, that's not me. The one
That's
I
not
had.
you. Darn it! I was hoping that was you.
I mean, maybe there's another David Ellis. I mean, it's so long ago. I mean,
wow.
the only one I can remember was one that was like you were dropping missiles on a passing object.
Okay.
And I think when I sent it in to somebody, I eventually got a response back because I made some snarky remark about the thermal printer, and they came back a little, huffy about that. That's a perfectly good printer. But that was on the 1000. I hadn't done anything on the 2068 other than I updated the bubble sort, and I need to get that done up.
Oh wow. Okay.
Just an on-screen, very pokey bubble sort, most inefficient sort ever.
Yeah. So
I remember trying it just for the visual fun.
Of the bubble sorting?
Yeah.
David, usually when we have someone who hasn't been on before, we ask them how they got into the Timex computers. So
well, it was the local normal store selling food was had a little corner there where they sold watches and stuff, and that's where they had the 1000s. I said I wanted a computer. I couldn't afford an Apple or an IBM at that point, so when it got 1000, and played around with that and as soon as the 2068 came out, I grabbed that one. I eventually upgraded to a IBM clone a couple years later. So, and then some friend I was working with wanted the 2068 for his girlfriend to learn how to program computers or whatever, and that one went away. And then the one I got now, I got off eBay some years later again when I wanted to play on that again.
Do we know if the learning program was ever successful?
Don't have a clue. No, it just kind of
by the way,
disappeared.
I think the girlfriend was not his girlfriend, like, oh yeah, my girlfriend wants to learn. Yeah, what? Come on.
One in Canada? You wouldn't know her.
Exactly.
I've got quite a few. I can't remember exactly. For example, my IBM first one was a PC Junior, and I can't remember where that disappeared to. I mean, at some point it went bye-bye, and then I had a generic clone one.
Well, cool.
Too many computers.
And David, how did you, what prompted you to start the groups .io list? I mean, obviously Yahoo was going away, right? But you're the one that got there in time to create it.
Yeah, I was just watching the Yahoo group, and I've been watching it for a little while, and because it had some tips in there and so on. I said, well, this thing's going and nobody else is moving, so sniff, sniff, sniff. Oh, here's an outfit that might suit for posting, and it seems to work fairly well. So It's
Cool.
built itself up. I mean, the first year was like, there was a spat of posts, one like in February or whatever. This is right before COVID hit, I think. And then there was a little bit more in late in the year, and then by the next year it started to snowball as people found it out. So
yeah. Once I found it, I started, and Adam, I think you were an early person weren't you?
Probably so. I mean, I tend to follow the groups better than like forums on like websites, just because well, I guess it is a website, but I'd like to get them in the email. I don't know if that's old school or not. But I mentioned in a post I made yesterday that November was our busiest month. There was like 350 posts or something.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's quite a bit of posting going on, and not too much of it's getting too far. It's about the 2068, but there's just the right amount of stuff here and there with Spectrum and thousands going on there. I sometimes worry that it gets out of, but I assume there's other 1,000 and Spectrum groups that are very more focused on those. So.
Well, there's, if you want to go deep into the 1,000, ZX81 world, Sinclair ZXworld.com, I think. It's one of these online like PHP BBS style forums. And those guys are so incredibly smart. If you have some bizarre question about the 81 or the 1,000, you go there and they will just pull it out within minutes.
Right. Well, I've got this one now, and the other one I've got that's an old is a Mac 2 GS.
Oh boy.
It's I'm mostly annoyed because it has a really difficult way of getting it over to an LCD monitor, and I do not care for the original monitor. Not so readable. And this one converts over much more easily.
It looks like you have a giant laser writer in the background.
It is a laser writer from the late 80s, doesn't work anymore. And then I've got a Hewlett, another a Brother or whatever printer on top of that.
I remember those laser writers.
At one point, that laser writer, the ink thing in it bled out, so it's got all over on the inside of it. But and it's also freaking heavy. It's like 90 pounds or something.
Yeah.
But that was when they had the Apple, the big Apple one that was actually a business computer with that printer. That's where that production thing of Apple kicked off late. I can't remember, sometime in the late 80s. That the big square Apple box you could open up and I can't remember what the exact model was, but that and that printer together started the whole art department business going.
Yeah. They were very popular. Very popular. Those two series.
Before that, it was all school stuff. Was their big anchor then?
Yeah.
Cool. Well,
Hey, guys, I have a question since we're talking about the group in general. So the group only goes back to 2020. And I did archive all of the Yahoo messages that were previously done onto archive.org. Is there a way to import them?
I'm not sure of when to importing message, probably different formats. You can certainly update files. We've now got 30 gigabytes of space. I believe we had a gigabyte and it was darn near full, and now we've got 30 gigabytes. So something can be posted on there.
So I just posted the URL for it. Like if you go over there, you can download all the previous group messages from because I think I started following the group in 2007 or something like that.
Does anybody still have Usenet access?
Oof. Well, you know what? You can get to that through Google News, sort of. Google has a bridge, gateway, whatever they call it.
I have access to it, but I think it's through their interface, and however they muck with it, I wasn't happy.
Yeah, it's not like as it used to be a long time ago.
No, back then it was running, bulletin board systems on 300 to 1200 baud modems and so on. Getting into that.
Wait, did you go onto a BBS with your Timex Sinclair?
No.
Oh, dang it! That would have fit in perfectly on my thought process.
Did anybody here, do BBSing with a 1000 or 2068?
Well, Willie and I did.
Oh, that's right. You guys wrote the BBS. That's right.
Yeah, and I know I certainly did, because that was, I only had the Timex computer. So, you could get onto any BBS with the time, it didn't have to be a Timex BBS.
Nope.
It just had, you just dialed into a BBS. And I remember doing that on my 2068. Yeah, certainly.
With the
I got
2050
into a
modem.
local one that had a
With the
Usenet
20
access.
Well, with the
And
2050 modem, yeah, because I had that.
Okay.
also got on CompuServe with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, the 2050 came with like a CompuServe. I remember the flyer. It's in my head. I don't have it with me, but I'm sure whoever's archived all the stuff that came with the 2050. I think CompuServe was one of the flyers that was in there. You could definitely get on CompuServe with it.
At 300 baht, I spent a lot of money with CompuServe.
Yeah, when I had my PC Junior, you could, they found a way to upgrade it from 300 to 1200, even though it was only made for 300. But now they're getting rid of phone lines in place. You got internet companies that were providing phone lines and also either DSL or fiber, or whatever, and they are literally not stopping getting rid of phone lines.
Mhm.
Well, the Bell system is really hoping to drop the hardware. So
The
that
analog
shakes the
hardware.
industry up.
Yeah.
They
That was
want
the
to get
most
rid of the outside
reliable,
plants.
most
They want to get rid
reliable
of the-
telecommunications company was telephone.
Well,
Hey.
they're still interested in content.
Yeah. Willie, did you spend a lot of time getting online? Oh, you turned on you unmuted yourself, but you're not. Maybe your microphone's off.
I'm getting hard of hearing, but not that hard.
It's not your week for technology, Willie.
Contact me through CompuServe.
Yeah.
I still
David, what's
remember
sad
my
is when you
number.
look at all of us, when you make that statement, we all think you're talking to us directly.
We're all old here.
As far as fixing glitches and stuff in the software, are you finding a few more as you go along, or maybe
Are you talking about the Pico software?
on the Pico software or any additions? Are you thinking of, you got bugs lined up on a pad to clear out, and you got some possible updates so that at some point in the next maybe month or two we might have a firmware update?
Yeah, there'll be a firmware update within. Yeah, there's like the GitHub has. Let me just do a quick check here of the GitHub, and I'll tell you. There's let's see, repository view. There we go. For open issues, we have 20 open issues. Some of them are enhancement issues, but there are some bugs as you've as folks have noticed. And one of the things is it's the SD file system is case sensitive, and I think we can do a better job of handling handling case mismatch issues. Right now it's not really graceful. But yeah, we've got a few things.
Or recovering from garbage commands and that sort of thing without
Yep.
falling over.
Yeah, the whole recovering from a little better communication between the Pico and the 2068. Actually, Gustavo, do you want to chat about that for a minute or two?
Yes, of course.
So David, Gustavo is the person responsible for the ROM side. He's rewritten portions of the 2068 ROM code.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Gustavo.
Oh, okay. Okay. Then let me introduce my skills. I'm a C80 programmer since 81. And also in the professional work, I developed multiple operating system, CPM and NPM. on the 80s. And that's why I have a big computer with the high capacity, memory capacity, and also a hard drive with the SCSI interface is a C80 machine. And that's used on those years for the developer and also to write assembly code. On those years, I modified the ROM of the Timex and create the TPI commands. The TPI commands now was adapted to the Pico, to the TS Pico interface. And that's why the new interface is use the TPI commands. The TPI commands is the save, load, verify, and merge command, standard commands, and not catch the error handle like interface 1 use or FDD3 system use. The the main feature of those commands is coexist in the tape plus the Pico storage commands. You can switch in the same what it is, in the same basic program, the tapes and also the SD storage at the same time. Just with the simple TPI command, you change between the tape port or the SD card port. For example, you can load the program from tape, then switch with the command, type on the edit line, and then save the program to the SD card. This is the main feature that you have both storage system at the same time, tape plus SD. And how you modify or how you can modify the settings at the TS Pico. You send the save, special save TPI commands directly to the interface. For example, if you send the command save TPI dir, that's a directory, you see on the screen as a result the directory of the SD card. All the interaction are use the save command to send to the interface. And also after that, you need to check the manual for different commands and uses. You can load, save, verify, or merge with the standard tape routines. That is the key point, because all the programs are compatible 100%. If you have a program in tape, you run the same program on the TS Pico. You don't need to modify the syntax or put the different lines. For example, the FDD3 made by Timex in Portugal use the asterisk, same that the interface 1 or microdrive. You need to put the save asterisk and then the name. Here you use the same syntax as save tape command use. That is why it's 100%. You don't need to modify nothing. This is the key points regarding the TPI commands. That was created on 1985 when I was 20 years old guy.
Now, for example, though, there are some programs that are going to still give you trouble. For example, the checkbook program, I got it off the tape. I was able to save it on the SD card. I filled in data, told it to save it, and it successfully saved a check123.tap, but it also complained about no access to the tape and then crashed itself.
So that's one of the issues that we have a GitHub issue ticket for, and that is right now it can save a single program to a tap file, and what we want to be able to do is create a tap file, and then you can save multiple things into it, right, and just treat it as a tape. And that's Ricardo, who's the MicroPython side and some of the early hardware side, has been working on that. and we'll get to the point where, you know, you can literally treat it like a tape, and what you'll load, you know, you'll load that tap file, you'll mount it basically, and then all of your saves and loads, you know, will be against that single tap file until you close it.
Exactly. It's not the ROM issue. It's the Python
Yeah, this is
programming
a
side.
right. This is a problem on the
Right.
Python side.
And then you may find it's still difficult because some of those programs may be at a machine code level, forcing their way to try to talk to the tape or something. I don't know. As I said, it saved it correctly on the SD card, but it still had code that was very unhappy that it was not able to put it on the tape. Got
Yeah,
upset.
it was probably something that used you know, an array, a data array, or the saving, you know, as code option. But basically the kind of thing that, you know, when you're working with
No.
a real cassette tape, it's not a problem because the tape just keeps rolling, right? And the 2060 just keeps putting out data. And right now the way it's written is, if a save command comes in, it just creates a single tap file directly from that, you know, from that
Exactly.
first command, and then
We can-
it will get upset after that. It will not.
Right. Well, you can
you'll
use the
parse.
checkbook pro. If you got the checkbook program, to use that as a good one to play with to see if you can get it to behave. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's got some code that's at a lower level.
And this is the Timex checkbook program.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay. Okay.
No, the system has the ability, maybe not now, but is supported by the ROM. You can, no you, but maybe we can create a copy program, for example, to move the tape to tap, and also you put this specific program, a copy program, and then you press play on the tape, and then read the header, and then read the block, and save it to the tap file. That could be possible. Then switch again to the tape port, continue with the reading, and continue to the saving on the SD. That could be possible, but not now because the tap supported for the actual firmware on the Python is a single program per tap file. The next, yes, the next.
Right, I'm not worried about using a checkbook program. I almost don't even use checks anymore. But I was just pointing out that that was one of the original programs that has difficulty if you try to use it from the tap on the SD card.
Well, and,
no, yes,
my
know that.
favorite program, David, is Profile, which is the database written by Tom Woods, and it will save its data out as a separate file, and it will not, you know, I can't get that to work yet, but we'll get to that point. Ricardo's been doing some work on that particular issue.
Did you try it the Arrows version or the tape version?
It has nothing to do with which version it is, Paul. It's the
Okay.
fact that the Pico doesn't accept anything beyond the first program in a save. So it's just a shortcoming in how the Pico handles incoming data from the 2068 when it comes to saving stuff.
Well, the checkbook program, I said, you know, I put it in the root directory just to keep it a little cleaner for testing purposes. And it created successfully its data file, check123.tap.
Yep.
And it can read it back in. It's just that when it gets to the point of having successfully done all that, it still gets upset and crashes because of the no tape there.
This might have been a verify routine. It might have been trying to verify its, you know, data saving. Yeah, we'd have to look at the code in order to find that out. Yeah. No, I don't know. Off the top of my head, I don't know.
Can you guys hear me yet?
I'm sorry. Wait, Willie, he speaks.
He's alive.
It helps when you have the right microphone turned on.
There you go. Sorry, what were you saying, Willie?
I just had a question when, of course, you know the issues I'm having, but I'm just, when we're running the Pico, is essentially just running in the modified ROM whenever you're loading or anything into the computer, always running off the ROM on the Pico?
Correct.
Or you be using the ROM on the 2068 anymore?
No.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Also, does that Pico, that whole hub have an actual power connector for, I guess, future needs when you need to get auxiliary power into it, or
The expansion board?
expansion board? Yes, looks
Yep.
like it had a little pin power connector that
Yep.
is not
Yep.
yet needed, but
Yeah, it's the same, barrel connector that's used in the 2068, and you can feed it 5 volts. As a matter of fact, you can buy a cable that has a USB A connector on, I think, on one end, and then it has the barrel connector on the other end. So you can, use one of your many cell phone chargers if you'd like.
right. Do we know how much a power load just the Pico board is as it is, and how much is left over for other stuff?
The Pico board is about 80-ish milliamps.
Oh wow. Okay. That's not bad.
So it's quite hungry, but
Well,
And what does the Timex have for potential output? I mean, obviously it had output for some things to be plugged into the factory. We know
if I remember correctly, it's like 450 milliamps for peripherals.
Okay.
so
but,
Jeff, is that in addition to what the 2068 board itself draws?
Yeah, that at least that's what the data sheet for the 2068 says. But given the age of these things, I wouldn't want to push it too much.
Well, and that's a really good point. That and then somebody said something the other day that prompted me to think about this. I've replaced the 2 largest capacitors in my 2068. Those 2 large electrolytic. If you've ever opened a 2068 or looked at a circuit board, there's 2 large electrolytic capacitors, and those things are officially 40 years old. And
But they weren't made in China.
well, they're not REFA, but they do dry out, and that's the thing. I mean, I'm not a in the audiophile world and in some other communities, there's a real propensity for the first answer to be, well, did you recap the unit? And it's, did you recap your guitar amplifier? No, but anyway, I won't go down there. Point being, some of our computers are perhaps at the recapping stage, especially with those 2 giant electrolytics. I'm sure that they're not doing what they were expected to do 40 years ago.
I'm not sure, David, because I know I've measured some of the ones I've taken out, and they still measure. I mean, ESR wise and
really, all
stuff
right.
like, yeah, they're not. I mean, they're not bad to
Okay.
me, but I mean, you are correct, and they are 40 years old. But I'm
Yeah.
not. I don't see them being a problem at this point. But
Oh.
as opposed to, like I said, these are nice Japanese caps. I think they're Nichicon or Rubicons or one of those.
Okay.
And this was way before, the whole electrolytic, where the formulas got out and all the Chinese were
right,
making fake formulas.
they left out the preservative chemical or whatever, and
Right. And so I think
Oh.
that happened in,
early
in the
2000s.
90s. Yeah.
Or
So I was
late
going to say
90s.
late 90s and so a lot of stuff that was made with those caps obviously turned out to be crap.
Okay.
Because the caps dry out and they that definitely is a problem. But in the time frame that the 2068 was made, I think all the caps are pretty on the up and up, especially on the name brand stuff, which they did use in the Timex, unlike what they used in the the ZX81s and the 1000s and the Spectrums, right? I don't know who the hell some of those cap manufacturers are. Those are kind of, that's why I think recapping a Spectrum is much more a common of a diagnostic thing than on the 2068, right? But
Okay.
anyway, that's just my 2 cents.
Okay.
I'll
Well,
throw in a penny. I got a 1978 pinball machine that we did not recap when I refurbished it.
and it didn't blow any caps?
Nope.
Okay. Okay. Now,
And it's CPU based.
huh, okay. Okay.
So I've got a recap kit right here that goes to a realistic communications receiver, a DX160, that
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
waiting to die, and it hasn't died yet. But I went ahead and bought the caps just in case.
So how long have you had the cap kit, and will the cap kit expire before your receiver
The
expires?
cap kit is 2 years old, and the receiver is like vintage 76.
Hmm.
And it's still
Yeah, it really depends on who made the caps, and you're right. I mean, they are. It's not necessarily a bad thing to recap it, being that they're 40 years old. But I'm just saying, when I've measured the ones that I've taken out, they measure okay, right? Doesn't mean they're okay, but I mean, as far as electrically, the ESR and everything, they're still good. So they shouldn't really be causing a problem, because obviously what happens when the ESR goes up, right? They start to heat up because now they're starting to dissipate power in the capacitor, and then that's just gonna, you're gonna have a self-fulfilling prophecy there where it gets hot, right? It starts to dry out, and the longer you keep it on, the hotter it gets, the more it dries, right? So, but these caps are pretty well built. I mean, I don't see any leakage, or anything like that on these. And they're the only problem is they're axial caps, so they're kind of hard to get these days, right? A lot of things don't even use through hole caps like that anymore, so axial caps especially are getting harder. But anyway, that's just my, I'm not saying that some 26.8s may have some problems with the caps. That could be, it's just the ones that I've tried and looked at, and I've worked on a lot of older equipment too, and computer stuff is generally okay. The problems you'll run into, I've seen with computer stuff and caps, is the tantalums.
Yes.
The
Yes.
old tantalums, they'll short out.
They're fine. All you need is a good fire extinguisher. Come on, Carl.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times, there's switchers in these old pieces of equipment, so they won't power, right? They won't burn themselves up. But you're like, what the hell's going on? And you have to pull boards out and shit like that till you get enough load off of the power supply where you can start, figuring things out. But I've seen tantalums. Yeah, tantalums can be bad from this time frame. The 80s, 70s, 90s. Those can go bad. But we don't have to worry about that in the Timexes. We don't have those. So.
Yeah.
We
Going
put
back
them
to
in
the
the QL.
power issue, though, you might want to. It's a very nice manual that came with it, but you might want to mention what that little power connector is for and what would be a suitable device to power it if someone just wanted to lighten the load on the 2068 or is worried about some future cards going into it.
Yep. Yeah, we're gonna put some more documentation up on the GitHub about the expansion board. And but yeah, a little print flyer with it as well is a good idea.
But it is a good thing that the 26.8 comes with a switcher, for the 5-volt line, because you can kind of abuse it a little bit, and it won't like burn up like a 7805 or something like that.
Yeah.
It'll kind of self-regulate, and if you short it out, you're not going to hurt anything. It'll basically shut itself off.
What about the brick itself, Carl? Have you done any?
Yeah, I've got a couple of them. I've probably got like 3 of them that are opened up. Those can be a problem. Those, I don't know why the caps in those are questionable to me. And there's really only one big cap in there. I think there's 2 maybe, but I think there's obviously the one big filter cap after the diodes. Sometimes the diodes short out. They just get too hot, overuse, and they'll open up. And
But those
so
were provided by a third party, right? That was a
right, DVE.
Right, DVE. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know
And
about you, Carl. I've never liked the potted linear supplies. Like you said, there's no way to get rid of the heat.
right, they're not potted inside. Luckily, you can break those open, but I've, like I said, maybe I'll take some pictures of the 3 that I've got, and you can definitely see the diodes get hot. I mean, there's burn marks on the boards and stuff like that, and And then the caps obviously are sitting, or the cap is sitting kind of right next to all those diodes. And so they're going to absorb some of that heat. And that's what I think kind of starts failing on the bricks, on the AC adapters for these things
Yeah.
is, the cap will dry out and then it can't filter it anymore. And then either that or one or more of the diodes will start failing.
Okay.
Someone might want to post in the section we got for repair and parts sort of thing. It's just a couple of known suitable replacement ones that have the right voltage and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The issue is polarity.
I know it was mentioned a while back, but you have to dig and dig and dig around in the messages to find that last time.
Yeah, I used to get, well, when Radio Shack kind of closed all their stores, I know they had a 15 volt, one of their inner cell AC adapters that use their tip, their interchangeable tip setup that they had.
Yep.
And I think it needs an end tip, and you can obviously change the polarity right there. You can make it at whichever polarity you want. But those things are getting harder to find now because I don't think Radio Shack currently, they're pretty much online now, but I don't think they make those anymore. And so they make a 15 volt one. So if you can find it, I've probably got like 3 or 4 of them here. Because I bought a number of them exactly. There, Ryan's got one there. I bought them when they went out of business. They were fire sales, so I got like 5 or 6 of them, and I've already either sold or given some of them away. Show the other end, Ryan, the tip, because that's where you got the interchangeable.
Yeah, that's the thing with mine.
Oh,
you made it permanent.
Well, I got this at an estate sale, and it had the wrong tip, and the right one I just couldn't find for less than 10 plus shipping. So I said, well, I just got a bunch of these, and then you go to put it on, and of course, with reverse polarity, and I'm not Doctor Who, so then it's kind of a real trick to get that, because it's naturally wired for center positive. So you do don't look too close at my crap job here, finagling to get that reversed. And I was going to make a joke about your plug. You said it was the same as the barrel, but is your center negative? No.
Well, I do know that I was able to buy a power supply from DigiKey, 15 volts with the proper polarity on the plug. So on the barrel jack. So they're not the cheapest, but if you don't want to futz with anything, you can get one there.
Mm-hmm. You can also get for the the Guitar World makes a and I see not Guitar World as a place, but for guitarists, there is a little cable about this long, about three inches long, that is a polarity reverser.
Oh.
And you can just plug it into a standard one, and it comes out reversed, because all of the pedals from the 80s are tip negative as well, and all the pedals now are tip positive.
Yep, they changed that, and we'll probably never go back.
Exactly.
Why did they change that? It's not exactly 2068 related, but why is it that they did that?
Well, because the coax that's exposed would be positive in our world, right, in the 80s. And so I think they kind of didn't want that, they wanted that to be, because if it shorted against something.
It's not because grunge happened and everyone got negative?
No.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, if you have a power supply whose output is grounded to earth ground, then you don't want that to be on. You want that to be on the outer shell of the barrel, because, like Carl said, if you short it to something that is truly grounded, I think the Germans call it arc and spark and fizz and banging.
It's because we were all contrarians back then or something, but maybe it's because now we want to center on the positives.
Oh, right.
Oh,
wow. Yeah, sure.
And not on the negatives.
I hope you're properly ashamed of yourself, Ryan.
I didn't even groan.
It's just like, this is kind of way out there too, but it's just like if you look at the AC outlets here in the States, you're supposed to put those, what I would consider, upside down, right? Where the ground pin is on the top, because the reason they tell you to do it that way is if something falls on it, it won't short against the two neutral and live lines if it's upside down like that. That's why I think by code, you're supposed to put those AC outlets upside down.
But then all the cables have things that are meant for them to be how they typically appear, which is upside down. And so the cable runs down, and if you got a correct one, the cable that's flat plug, it'll run up the wall.
I mean, it'll still work, right? But I mean, that's kind of the idea for having the ground pin up on the top. You can put it in any way you want, but
Yeah. One other addition you might think of for a card would be one that would allow it to interface with a game console controller, because you can't find joysticks for Hoot, for these things, the native ones, but you could conceivably have it work with a controller.
You mean the 2068?
Yes.
Yeah, those use Atari controllers.
No, he's talking about like those little pads.
Oh,
things,
you're
for the
talking
Nintendo
about
or
like
something.
using a Nintendo controller, that everybody likes to use a Nintendo controller for everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess the question is, which controller would you want to see supported?
Well, whatever. First off, is easy is it can be connected reasonably. I mean, there's quite a few, and of course, some of them now are just USB, but that's another story.
Well, I think the Nintendo controller, Jeff, is pretty standard. I mean, it's a shift register type of controller, right? Yeah. So.
Okay,
So
David.
I opened up my Nintendo NES controller several years ago to make it compatible with the Atari 7800, which is a 2-button controller, and I just took off the chip that's inside, like Carl was saying, and just wired it directly. And so now it's a 7800 controller, which I could just stick in my 2068 if I wanted.
So what the hang on, you've blown my mind. But let me first spotlight Ryan, because he's showing us a Sega.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
All right, and what's the
Of course, this is a 6-button, so it has that funky way you have to read it. Whereas the 3-button ones are just a straight wire, so they're more Atari-like, I think.
Huh.
Well, the Nintendo controllers you have to shift register them, because there's too many. You've got the D-pad, you've got A and B, and I think you got like start and something. Anyway, there's more buttons than there was wires, so that's why the Nintendo controllers, it's a real simple shift. They use a shift register to read everything. So that would probably be pretty easy to implement, I would imagine, to convert that over to, the Timex joystick.
Yeah, almost.
Well, I think there are adapters for the Atari 7800 with the NES controller that you could just use with the 2068.
Really?
Already, yeah, I think so.
I guess the big thing with the Nintendo controllers is the connection. It's it uses that Nintendo connector, so that's the
Genesis controller worked on the 2600. It might work on the 2068. I haven't tried.
Yeah, if it works on the 2600 or any of like the Atari computers or anything like that, then it should work on the 2068, because it uses the same Atari type pinout.
Yeah, only one of the buttons works on the 2600. I don't know what happens with the other buttons, so maybe but
yeah, I think only a fire button's going to work.
I was just thinking it's something for doing the flight simulator or something, as long as it can proper to that.
Okay.
And again, getting back to the 2060, we could build a lot of these things into that to begin with. It wouldn't be a card that would be added on. It may be a secondary board. Like I said, I didn't want to make one board the whole width of the system, but maybe like the middle board could have some of these things built into it, and the third board could have some more stuff built into it. That way you can, kind of add on to it as your needs, expand. But then again, the market for something like this is obviously infinitesimally, I can't say that damn word, small.
It's David Ellis.
Yeah.
That's the market, is David Ellis.
Yeah,
Minuscule.
and so it's you know, I mean, I would love to, like I said, you know, we kind of started getting off topic of that, but you know, I don't know how many people out there would really appreciate something like a 2060 expansion unit on the back of their 2068 that housed all this stuff, so it wasn't just hanging off the back, kind of like it is now.
Yeah.
And it
I'd
kind of
fill out
was,
what you can put in the slots first, and then then if you get to that point and people are doing it, then worry about a nice fancy box or something.
true.
Adam, you asked, was it you that started the robotics discussion on the group?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Is
Okay.
this recently?
A few weeks ago, it
Mm,
started.
I don't think I started it, but I think I talked in it.
Okay. And the reason I bring this up is because Mike, before we started this meeting, was telling us about, you know, how he had a 2068 and he ended up buying a 1000 and building a robot with it based on Bruce Taylor's book. I think it was published by Tab Books. Bruce Taylor built a thing called a Henry robot, and I found a webpage about it. So this thing that you see in all its horrible glory here was powered by a ZX81 with 16K of memory. And he says he had a 128 word vocabulary and voice recognition capabilities. Yeah. Wait, but there's more.
I'd have to imagine, just to interject here, that he probably had to tape that 16K RAM pack on there pretty good.
Velcro. Velcro.
Yeah, what I'm looking for it. I'm looking for it. I fast forwarded. There's a picture with a. Here we go. It looks like I
A
don't know.
jock strap.
What do you? Oh, there we go. Oh, it's not any. It's not any larger. Yeah,
That looks like the one that was in like the Sinclair user, I think.
I think it might have been. Let's see if we can. Oh, that's all the that's the battery and some, you know, switching
Well,
stuff.
if he was smart, he would have just put the 16K inside the ZX81.
Oh, I bet it's right there. I bet it's one of these boards, Carl.
Maybe the middle, the light color.
Oh, it's right there in the back. You see the little black thing?
You sure?
Yeah, doesn't that look like the right there with the behind that last circuit board? It looks like a little black Sinclair RAM pack.
Yeah, that's a lot of
that's a lot of wires.
Wow, that's a lot of signal link there for RF radiation.
Whatever.
It's filtered by the case.
We don't care about
that. That he's probably getting bitches from all his neighbors from all the RF that are. I'm just kidding.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
MemoPack came out with 16K RAM packs to tailor the back end of the ZX81 TS1000, but he also had a 64K.
Yep.
I wonder why
you could also stack the 16s.
Yes, MemoPack allowed you to stack them.
Without a 32K too.
Yes, they did. So I'm wondering why he just stopped at 16. Why he didn't take it to the full 64K.
Oh, Bruce.
Cost.
Yeah. Well, this was 84. He said so. He was developing this thing up through 84.
Well, it has to do too a lot with the memory, how the memory map in the 1000 works. So even though you have 64K, it doesn't mean you can use all of it. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, that makes sense.
You can't run code from the upper 32K.
Right.
So what did you do? A bank swap routine?
No, the problem is the ZX81 and 1000 ROMs, whenever it sees an M1 fetch from the upper 32K, it assumes it's video.
Okay.
Yeah, so you'd have to do like a high res mod. I mean, if you really wanted to use that memory, you can, but it's not just, simply sticking RAM onto the back of the machine. It won't You
Yeah.
know, the RAM is so poorly decoded. The whole memory map really in that machine is so poorly decoded, you know, that yeah, you had to do a lot of that stuff on your own if you wanted to use it.
Well, and as Sir Clive said, who needs more than 2K?
Or who needs more than 64K? That was
Hey,
somebody
David,
else.
that robot was in
The
the
CX-81 had 1K. We were lucky in America to get 2K.
What is that? Volume 3, number 4. Okay, I'll go find that.
so it's this
Oh
guy.
yeah, yeah, that's him, Bruce Taylor. Oh look, those pictures are in color.
Sounds like somebody needs to do some scanning.
He might have had space limitations. That's why he used the Sinclair memory.
Yeah, could be.
Well,
Wow.
probably in what he was doing with this thing, he didn't need more than that.
Okay.
Well, it depends on what he
Oh,
was
there-
coding it with.
Is that the RAM pack?
That looks like the RAM pack, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
sure
Look at the right
does.
photo. Number 3.
3 shows it better.
Yeah, 3 shows it better right there.
Oh yeah, you can even see the little dividing
yeah.
lines.
Seam.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Ryan, what's the date on that magazine?
That's
90 or 83. Oof.
July,
Yeah.
August. Yeah.
I had hair back then.
And use
I think all of us did.
and use
Oh, here we go.
a special ROM for the program,
Don't you
or
just
you
love?
need to load from tape every time you.
Don't you just love these illustrations?
Mickey Mouse arm.
Yeah, the guy that did the illustration for Sync was, you know, hats off to that guy. Those were great.
Oh,
I mean, that was a whole nother part of getting that magazine, was just for the you know, the illustrations.
I found the article, and so all right, so let's see here. A little over a year ago, he says, and this was July, August of '83. Trying to see if he says whether it's stored on cassette or in ROM.
Remember, there's about a month or two lead time for these magazines.
Several, yeah, sometimes several, yeah.
Up to 6.
He says it's based on the radio electronics project from what, 82-ish is my guess. I don't
He
remember
doesn't
that.
give a date there, but you'd probably just have to look up that article series.
Yep, yeah. So yeah, you can see there's the RAM unit. That looks like a bunch of relays to me. A shit ton of relays.
Yep.
PIO.
Couple extender boards. A lot of capacitors. I can't imagine why you would need capacitors.
Arcing. On the relays.
A lot of EMF going on there with all those
Exactly.
relay coils.
Exactly.
We did that with all the relays in the old electromechanical switches at Bell. They had a resistor capacitor network on them.
Yeah. Although, you know, a backwards diode usually takes care of most of that stuff too, but still.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, a lot of the ones that they used at Bell, it was put it in and forget it. Because they didn't die.
Yeah, and he's talking here about his power problems and using a bunch of hash chokes to solve that. Interesting. There was another guy who wrote
There
a
he talks
book.
about the software.
Oh,
You go back up a little bit. He talks
writing
about
the
writing
software.
the software.
Okay. All programs are for the 8K, right? Oh, yeah, he's loading it off cassette, it looks like. Containing. Let's get ahead. There's those memotechs. Yeah, he's written it in basic-ish. Probably some machine code. Oof. Oof. More power to him. Oh my god. You know what we should do? He's, by the way, he's got a LinkedIn page.
You know, and it's
Okay.
funny too, because most of those companies that he lists there for the parts, they're still around.
I know.
All
Tico, Mouser.
electronics, yeah, all electronics just closed, but a lot
Yep.
of some of their employees just opened up a new, I can't remember the name of it, but it's basically, you know, all
Yeah.
electronics version 2.
Yeah. Yeah. We have less than half an hour. Is there anything that anybody wants to jump in and make sure we cover?
David,
Yes.
there was some confusion with the Terminal 3000.
Yeah, can you talk about that?
I can. I've taken a bit of time to get things with me. Let me see if this helps. So this is a normal Timex computer, right?
Okay, that's the Portuguese
The
2060,
Portuguese one.
Okay.
This is the Terminal 3000.
Oh, thing of beauty.
The same size. Exactly same size. So it's, if you want to implement on a new 2068 a keyboard like this, with this design, it's a good keyboard. Now, you connect the Terminal 3000. I have this is a normal controller for FDD system,
Okay.
but it's the same connection as a 3000. So this connects, sorry, this connects like this.
Oh. Okay.
And you are ready to go.
Slick.
Nice.
It gets power from the controller, and it only displays the video
So-
signal from
Uh,
CPM.
What's in the
Sha-
black? The
Shani?
3000 thing. What's in there? Just the keyboard, or
No, it's like a computer. It has the 16K ROM, 16K RAM for the signal, the video signal. It has the SCLD.
okay? Okay.
It has a Z80, of course, and some glue logic so it can communicate with.
With the controller. Okay.
Shani, do you know what is the type of the connector?
Huh? What?
Do you know the type exactly of this connector?
This connector?
Yes, exactly.
Looks like a
Well,
DB15.
it is. I think people call it an Atari type. I think it was used on. I'm not
Looks
sure
like the
because
5200 connection.
I don't have one. It's a 15-pin D type, but it has some notches here.
Yes, that's exactly because I lost 10 of
I
that.
think I'm not sure, but people say it was from Atari 76.
5200.
The
No,
5200 had the big connector.
no, the third machine. It was the
7800?
Yes.
No, it's not
It
for the
This is a
7800.
910.
It's for the
78
5200.
is 9.
5200, Adam.
Yeah,
because
5200 adapter.
I have 10 of those, but I lost those connector. I have extension for 3 feet or 1 meter, but I lost it. But I never found it again.
Mm.
Thank
That'd
you,
be
Shani.
neat.
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure of what type of connector is because it's the cable. It's already. It's not a plug you put on a cable. It's already carved in it.
Molded in.
Don't know how you call it.
Yeah, it's a molded
Molded
cable.
connector.
The cable is complete to the other end.
I'm sure
yeah,
some good
no.
good pictures of it would we could probably identify it, but kind of looks like
Probably.
a DB15-ish connector to me.
Yeah.
No, because you have a different length of the pins, and also has those
Teeth.
what is this? Those stop position, or is totally different than DB15, because if you put on the camera, you see two marks for one side
Yeah,
and one mark in the middle. It's
yeah.
different. It's not exactly the DB15.
Okay.
No, if you try to use a normal connector, it won't fit. You have to
Exactly.
bend it or remove the shielding from the normal connector.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's probably got it's got some kind of key
Hey, this.
key
Yeah.
shield on it. Yeah, so it will only go into that connector.
Yeah, you have two here and one on this side.
Exactly. That is the main difference.
It'd be interesting to get the top half of that terminal thing and scan that in 3D wise, and maybe we could figure out how to make a redo the
What?
keyboard for it.
The connector or the?
No, on the terminal itself, it has the regular keys on it. You know, that would be nice. That would be a nice keyboard for the 2068.
Well, my website has some pictures I've taken from because when I got the terminal, I had to see what was inside.
Of
So I
course,
took
yeah.
several pictures. As how does this work?
No, this is the
Well,
Timex
this is the
terminal.
normal interface. Connect the cable
Right.
also. I
But that
also have
interface is built into
the silver one.
Yeah.
It's the same.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah,
Yes,
just,
the
I
silver.
guess.
The silver
What?
is for the FDD3 in the Timex
No,
US. No.
no. This interface is for the 2068, the Portuguese one.
Okay, I use this with the different ROM because
You can use this with the 2068, but with the Spectrum emulator already.
no, I have the silver using the Zebra ROM inside because my FDD is Zebra. Yes, exactly.
Timex.
Yeah.
Zebra removed the sticker and put
Yeah.
their label.
Put a mailing label on it. That was what
Yeah.
they used.
So, about the two board machine, Carl's spoke of. It's not 3268, 56. It's a 10-net machine, one of the first prototypes. It's not the machine. I can show you. Let me just. Well, this was going to be the board for the new machine.
What is that thing that you're holding? Because it's so floppy.
It's
Is it just a really thin board?
No, it's a paper. I printed out because Timex engineers, one of the Timex engineers had a board for the new machine, but it's unpopulated. So
Okay.
we don't have nothing. We'll just have the board. So
I don't understand when you're saying new machine. What new machine?
the new Timex machine that was not made. The
But what are we talking about by that?
The Timex 3256.
Yes.
Enlighten me, please, because I'm.
Yeah,
That was supposed to be the next
know all of these details.
after. Yeah.
Well,
That was supposed to be
Timex
the
of
next
Portugal was
machine.
working on a new machine to replace the Terminal 3000, the 2068, and the 2048.
And it would have been
So-
ZD80 based, or are we talking about a 16-bit machine?
Yes, still Z80.
Okay.
You have there two SCLD plus one.
No, it's one SCLD, some gate arrays made by Thomson. Because Timex was working with Thomson to make some gate arrays to replace a lot of logic. So you think, yeah, it's 3 SCLDs, but it's not.
And not use the standard Timex SCLD, right?
One of them would be, the other would be two gate arrays, new gate arrays.
CPLDs or something. Maybe.
By the time it was gate arrays.
Yeah.
Yes, because the FDD has one SCLD inside. Maybe one of those is the SLD
Yeah,
inside the FDD. Put
for
in the same board.
example, this
Yeah.
interface doesn't have a gate array.
Yes.
It's the first ones. The last ones have the gate array. Also, the FTT 3000, the later units have a bigger board. It's not a small board like these units. Many FTD 3000s have this controller, the board inside. It's the same, but the later ones have a bigger board.
Yes, I use a Motorola or Rockwell SCLD, right? Inside, it's different.
I think it's a Thomson. Thomson was working. Timex was working with Thomson that later becomes ST.
Okay.
Johnny, is this on your website? Is this the TC3256?
My website is a bit outdated. I've been working with the museum to make a new one. It's not yet
right. So, but is there some information on your website about this?
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe I change it, but not much.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, all I can remember reading about it was, that it was in development, but there's some prototypes that were made. Obviously, there's a board for it because Johnny's got a facsimile
all
of
we
it.
know is that only a handful of machines were assembled.
Right. There was just some prototypes made, and then I don't know. I guess Portugal Timex died too, right?
It died because of Amstrad buying out Sinclair, and Amstrad was not allowing for Timex to export the ZX Spectrum ROM.
Okay.
Okay. Interesting.
Do you know, Johnny, if in Portugal create a patched version of the ROM for the 2068?
I believe the ROMs are exactly the same as the original ones.
Right. That is the big question. Why? If we know that exist any errors on that, why never patch it?
I really don't know. We never asked that to the engineers.
Okay.
Maybe they were afraid, like the 1500s. Fix some, create new ones.
Oh, yes.
There is always that problem. And because there is not much software for the 2068. It's mostly Spectrum or 2048.
Okay.
And the 2048 was full development in Portugal, or is prototype come from US?
No, from what I understand, Portugal was working on a new version of the 2068 for the American market, but Timex USA folded. Timex Computer Corp folded, and we already had done the research to modify it, and we launched first the 2068. I believe the 2048 came in 85. So
yeah, it was a much later. It was a much later development. Yeah, that was totally a Portugal machine, I think.
Yeah. It's not related with the fated Timex Sinclair 2048. Not the same.
Yeah, it's basically a Spectrum using the 2068's SCLD and no cartridge port, and they actually put a power light a power LED on the 2048 too.
True. And the
'Cause I-
Kempson and the
Yeah, because I
Kempson
have
interface.
I have one. I have a 2048 here.
It's a nice machine, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just like a Spectrum, but it's got, you know, the 2068 keyboard. And I don't think I brought that over with me, Adam. I don't think I had it then. I just brought
No,
the
I think it's in our video. I think it's black, right?
yeah, it's the
Yeah,
black
It's
one.
a black unit.
I saw a YouTube video recently. I can't remember. I have to go back to see who it was.
There are
He
also
had
black
he
2068.
he had one of these, the 2048s, and yeah, he kind of commented on that was what the Spectrum could have become.
Right. Because it did have a joystick port on it. Because I mean the ports were the same. You know, it's they just chopped off the cartridge port and it still had the joystick port moldings. But one of
I had
on the right
They had
side it's a
one
power.
port. Yeah,
On
one's
the
a
right
power
side it's a
switch.
power. They put the power switch in the joystick port, and on the left side is still a joystick port.
Which would be
Is
a
a-
Kempston
is a
probably.
Kempston. Right.
There
it's
are
a
also
Kempston
black
port.
ones.
Yeah, they also made black 2068s. Yeah, I don't
Mhm.
have a black one.
Ultra's
You know,
I
they-
bought this one on the flea market.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
it's
a 48.
Yep, that's
Yeah.
a 2048 there.
Looks really nice. I'll
So I
take
just
one of
posted
those.
the video of Carl's machines that we made a few years ago.
Oh yeah, that's right. That was cool.
And you are also talking about the printer. Well, in Portugal, we had also the dot matrix printer, the Timex printer 2080.
Who made that? Or do you know who
It's-
made that?
Yes, we know it's a Seikosha SP 1000.
Yeah, that's another company I heard that they made or were looking at.
I'm not sure. No, mine has the Timex sticker on it.
Yes,
Okay.
but it's a serial
So
printer, right? It's
You
not
can,
synchronic.
yes, it's a serial printer. You
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
print stuff from basic.
Can I see the front panel again?
Johnny, can you hold it up again?
The printer itself, yeah.
Like this.
Yes. Okay, so on the left side, looks like the same model they Sinclair used for the QL printer.
It
Yes,
basically is.
it's very similar. Yes,
Okay.
Yeah, it is because I had it. It's the Shikosha 1000.
it's kind of strange because inside the logic ports it says SP 800.
I know
Yes,
the printer ribbons were all SP 1000.
In Argentina, we know this printer and also the FDD system too. I buy in Buenos Aires my system and also the serial printer. But after years, I use the AERCO interface, but in parallel, because it's more flexible with the program, because I use many programs with the AERCO and using the Centronic interface, not the serial version of the Seikosha or this, in this case, the Timex 2080. It's a really good printer. And I remember the ink cartridge are very compatible with another brands of the used here locally. Nice.
Gentlemen, it's 7 minutes to go. And I just want to tell you, remind you that our next meeting is going to be Sunday, the 17th at 2 p.m. Eastern. So, Johnny doesn't have to stay up until 4 a.m. to join us for that one.
Who knows if he stayed up? He might have got up early.
True, right, yeah.
Oh, I slept a bit before, or I'll be like dying in here.
You're gonna miss it, Adam, because I was just gonna say,
Oh yeah, I'll be in the Florida Keys.
oh really? Damn.
Yeah.
Okay. Bring your 2068 with you because here's what I was thinking.
My wife will be, are you on a bulletin board? I'll be like, yes.
Here's what I was thinking is you have 2 weeks roughly.
Okay.
and there is probably in one of those, Sync magazines or something else, some kind of Christmas program.
Okay.
And I
You
think
sound like you want me to do some typing.
everybody here should try to type in some kind of Christmas program and have it ready to show for the 17th.
Huh.
But you're not going to be here, Adam, so
I
you'll
won't be
miss
here,
out
yeah.
on all that fun.
I think that's my travel day back, actually. But yeah, I'll miss it no matter what.
Okay. All right,
Yeah.
then.
Well, I'll be happy to show you all. I'm supposed to get the Spectrum Next
Oh, cool. Cool.
sometime this month. They're shipping now.
Okay.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, well, they're shipping to Europe. They haven't started for America yet, so
That's
I'm not
correct.
holding the breath yet.
It's been what, 3-4 years in the waiting?
Yeah, pretty much.
Earl, is the new one going to match the one you have, or?
Yeah, that's a good question. I can't remember. I think it kind of looks like it. It looks pretty much the same, but I know they changed quite a bit on the inside
Okay.
on the board. Because I'm unlike you guys, I have the original one, the first one.
Evil
So-
laugh cue.
And that was a
Oh,
long, even the first one was a long,
Yeah, it was a couple of years. It wasn't,
Okay.
yeah, it took a little while, but we didn't have as many hiccups, I guess, as they did with this one.
or the pandemic happening.
Right, the COVID hit, and
Yeah,
Well, they had to
But-
change their FPGA at least twice.
that's right.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, let's look at some Spectrum Next 2s.
if
And
he gets it, if he gets
But
it. in
yeah, if I
time.
get it.
and Christmas stuff.
So I don't want to like tack this on at the very end and ask a huge open-ended question, but I mean, what are the major differences between the old one and the new one? I mean, are they huge, or are they just?
From what I
Anybody?
understand, the motherboard is completely revised. It's gone through like, I don't know, 7 different revisions now since the first production line.
They're including a power switch. To me, that's the biggest change.
You finally got the clue.
But it has extra features, I assume.
They're putting it on the cable. It's actually not on the machine itself.
I don't think it really has any extra features. They just had to design the board because there were some. I'm trying to remember if I read it right. That people were trying to plug in. The whole point of the Next was, you could have hardware compatibility, right? So you could actually plug in real world hardware into it. But I think on the one that I have, there was some problems that it could blow not blow the FPGA up, but there was filtering issues on some of the lines. I don't know, something like that. So I know they revised that, but then they couldn't get the FPGA anymore, so they had to go to another one, and then that one dried up, and then they go to another one.
Well, and wasn't there was a back powering issue?
Yeah, the HDMI.
Yeah, I had that problem. I remember that. Yeah, because I was like, it never shuts off. You pull the plug on it, and the light's still on. And I'm like, what the hell's going on here? So, oh yeah, it's getting power from the HDMI port.
Oh my heavens, we have perpetual motion.
Only on the Timex Sinclair.
That's right. That's
But
right.
as feature wise, I don't know. They might have added some stuff, but I don't think so.
I think they now come with 2 mega memory and all the bells and whistles. So
Oh, okay. Everything I had to add on separately, it's all standard now.
I think so, because when I ordered mine, I think it came with all of that.
Okay.
Alan reached out to us about 2068 specs with, I think, an eye towards implementing a 2068 mode on the Next 2, but I don't know where that went.
Yeah, that would be great if they could do that, because it's just the core, right? They need to get the core up and going.
Yeah.
You can load that core up into the FPGA, and I know when I got mine, of course, that was not even on the radar. So, but that was years and years and years ago. So, and I haven't really played with the Next much since, a little bit here and there, but I haven't even looked at the firmware. But that would be great if they have a 2068 core. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would like to make a small announcement. If anyone is in the area on Saturday, we're having an Atari party over here, and Carl and Ryan are coming over. and we're going to do some Atari stuff. And Carl, if you bring your next, we can have a partially a next party as well.
Yeah, I'll have to dig it out.
Um,
Adam, where do you live?
I live in Albuquerque, and so do
Hey,
they.
I just drove through there 3 days ago.
Do you really? Or did you?
Yeah,
Were you on
Yeah.
I-40 or I-25 or something?
40. Yeah, I had to
Okay,
go
yeah.
to Nevada for a national convention.
Well, if you do it again, I'm right off the freeway.
Okay,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
I even
Yeah,
thought of stopping off and having 72 ounce
What was that?
steak.
Amarillo.
Well, that's in Amarillo. Yes, you're right.
Oh, wow, look at that.
whoa, Ryan,
You win.
you're jumping the gun. But
What?
Oh, that's on an emulator, man. That don't count.
it's close
That
enough. I'm gonna
counts.
count it.
That counts.
Oh,
Well,
man.
I'd have to just get it over there, but this is one of my programs I recovered.
Really?
Oh,
So this
you
isn't
wrote
just
that.
like something else. This is one of yours. Awesome. Ryan,
Yeah,
you have to share
there's-
this out to the group.
No, well, actually, this one where I improved the drawing routine. I made a second one. There was one from. Oops.
How old were you when you wrote that?
Oh, we'll figure it out. Let's see.
2023. He was this year old.
Oh, this one's from. This was a type in from.
Oh, nice.
Wow. Talk about festive.
Nice.
Did it make noise? I thought I heard noise.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So cool. Look when you get color. Amazing.
I remember that.
Oh, Ryan, share those out. Send
Let's
those
see
to the
what-
group
December '84.
so we can all enjoy it. Oh man,
Look at that. He put it in the REM statement.
I
That's my
love
man. Who the hell did that when you were a kid? Hardly any of us.
That's awesome, Ryan. Cool. Cool. All right. Thank you.
So I'll tease the. Oh, yeah, I should do this. I'll
Go ahead.
tease this one too.
Oh,
Something else I found.
hello.
I found in my old etchings. I was thinking
What is
about
that?
the expansion back then.
Yeah, look
Wow.
at you.
Are you
How
taking
old
notes,
is
Jeff?
that?
What's
Is
that?
That's from the 80s?
Yeah.
Jeff, are you taking notes?
What did you call
got
it?
a
The
screenshot.
Sinclair
Awesome.
Alex?
The
Max.
Max.
Oh,
Sinclair
the
Max.
Max. Okay, Sinclair Max.
So cool.
Could have said Sinclair Alex.
Awesome. Ryan, that was fantastic. Very
So,
cool. Very
yeah.
cool.
Okay.
All right, gentlemen. We'll see you in 2 weeks ish, right? That's 2 weeks from now. Except for Adam. And hopefully I'll remember to turn on screen sharing without Adam.
You did it today without me. I have faith.
Maybe somebody else will remind me. All right, good night, guys.